Sean Strickland becoming the UFC middleweight champion perfectly exemplifies what makes this sport so fascinating. Ahead of 293, next to nobody gave Strickland a chance to beat Israel Adesanya, and he went out there and beat him handedly, leaving a very surprised fan base in his wake. There were a number of things about his performance that was very impressive, but the thing that stands out the most to me at this point in time is how tight his defense was against such a dynamic striker in Adesanya. It was that shelled-up style that's been openly mocked and criticized that looked to be the determining factor in this fight. He protected himself very well, which gave him the opportunity to become more assertive with his boxing-only approach. From the moment at the end of the very first round when he landed as perfect of a straight cross that you're ever going to see, dropping Izzy and following up with a barrage of perfectly placed punches, as John Anik perfectly put it on the broadcast, he completely changed the complexity of the contest from that moment forward. That newly acquired self-confidence, coupled with a ton of belief in his coaching and his ability to execute on his corner's instruction, made for a performance to behold. It's fights like we saw in this contest that pulls people in and generates fandom, which, by the way, is something that he was showing in spades days before he ever stepped foot in the cage. I was almost as surprised to see the fans' positive reaction to him during fight week as I was seeing him win the middleweight title. Despite the fact that Adesanya was almost fighting in his own backyard, the fans' reaction to Strickland was unexpected, but also cool to see. Love him or hate him, he has resonated with the people, and the fanfare he received all fight week long proves that. As the dust is still settling from UFC 293, I'm realizing that Sean Strickland demonstrated many things this past week, perhaps more so outside of the octagon than he did inside of it. This is a guy that a lot of people find outright revolting. He's crass, vulgar, and downright repulsive with some of the things he says. Even if you can have a sense of humor about it, he still often crosses the line of being outrageous and funny to downright disgusting. But the guy can't be anything but completely honest, and that's really something we could use right now in this day and age of the sport. If you're able to weed through some of the messed up things he says, there are a lot of truths in there that he's shining a light on that will make MMA better off because of it. In his post-fight interview, he talked about how he had doubts about himself about whether or not he could hang with Izzy.
I still can't quite wrap my head around it, you guys. I thought it'd be a lot harder.
The genuine humbleness is far more impactful coming from a guy like him because he is somebody who is truly not concerned in the slightest with his public image, so you know it's authentic. He also talked about how everything when it comes to the sport with the title and the media space is all just bullshit anyways.
A lot of this is bullshit. I like to fucking fight. I like the fans. I love my job, but a lot of this is fucking bullshit.
And he's right. It is. Especially these days where fighters are so concerned with being a personality and being a character and their public image. It's beyond exhausting. It's got to a point where it's not even interesting or entertaining anymore. This space has become a lot of uncharismatic people pretending to be charismatic. It doesn't work. And if they are naturally charismatic and it gets some traction, they exploit the hell out of it to the point where it becomes uninteresting and mundane, all for the sake of gaining attention and getting those opportunities. It's been this way for years now, basically since Conor McGregor changed the game, and I've grown to accept it and not get too worked up about it. But it's really only dawning on me now how often some of these fighters are getting way too carried away with themselves. The appeal of this sport and what makes it so pure is the fact that all that hype means absolutely nothing if you're getting your ass kicked. The cream will always rise to the top, and you can build and craft your public image all you want. It amounts to next to nothing if you don't do what matters most, and that's perform come fight night. Just by virtue of becoming the champion, Strickland is showing that concerning yourself with your public image should be a lower priority, and that the time and energy going into your interview and your Twitters and your callouts and your post-fight interviews is overplayed. No matter how many people in the space who criticize fighters for what they do and say on the mic or in interviews, it's all nonsense with not nearly as much value as many will have you believe. Sparring the most rounds, training harder than everybody, being obsessed with the craft of mixed martial arts is what you should lead with. You can talk about shooting dogs.
Stray dogs, dude, like vicious pit bulls, and they came run at my dog. I had a gun, fucking boom, plugged one.
Be culturally insensitive and roast the media and fighters in the most crude of ways.
What's your tattoo of, man? What is that?
Video game controller and some music.
Oh, man, the one guy that doesn't get pussy in here.
You can be downright despicable in a lot of people's eyes. But if you're beating up the best fighters in the world, you're getting the championship treatment regardless, from the fans, the media, and the promotion itself. So for however long this lasts, I'm really looking forward to Sean Strickland's run as UFC champion. There is way too much self-celebration in this sport and not nearly enough humility. No question there will be a fair share of absurdness, but keep an ear out for what's being said by the middleweight champion in between it all. Because all that craziness aside, the MMA world is about to get a much needed dose of honesty and hear a lot of things that need to be heard.